Today, we are diving deep into one of the oldest, most influential stories in all of Western literature. It's a tale packed with monsters, gods, and one hero's long, long journey home. We're talking about Homer's Odyssey.
But think about that for a second. 3,000 years. That is an almost impossibly long time. So the real question is, how? What is it about this story that gives it such incredible staying power? How can an ancient epic poem still feel so relevant to us today?
Well, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get into the story's origins, who told it and how. Then, we'll map out the actual 20-year journey Odysseus went on. After that, we'll get to the secret sauce, Homer's incredible storytelling genius. And finally, we'll dig into why this ancient story still hits home. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. To really get the Odyssey, you have to understand where it came from, and, more importantly, how people first experienced it. So, the poem is credited to a guy we call Homer. Now, who is he? Well, the truth is, we know next to nothing about him. The best guess is that he was a poet working around the 8th century BC, somewhere on the coast of modern-day Turkey. He's a total mystery, but his work, well, it basically shaped Western storytelling forever.
And here's something absolutely crucial to understand. The Odyssey wasn't a book. Not at first. It was oral poetry. You have to picture it. A bard in a great hall, maybe by firelight, chanting this incredible story completely from memory, probably with a lyre playing in the background. That performance is key. It explains the rhythm, the repetition. It was literally designed to be heard and remembered, not read quietly in a corner.
All right, let's get into the plot. Now, before we look at the clever way Homer actually tells the story, let's just lay out all the events in a straight line from start to finish.
The whole thing spans a staggering 20 years. I mean, just think about that. 10 of those years are spent fighting the Trojan War. But when the city finally falls, that's when Odysseus's real problems begin. He spends another full decade just trying to get home, getting lost, fighting monsters, and even being held captive on an island by the nymph Calypso for 7 whole years.
And those years lost at sea, they are the stuff of legend. This is where you get all the iconic scenes. Odysseus outsmarting a giant one-eyed Cyclops, his men getting turned into pigs by the sorceress Circe, and Odysseus having himself tied to the mast of his ship so he can hear the deadly song of the sirens without crashing his boat.
But here's the thing. While Odysseus is out there fighting for his life, a whole different war is being fought back home in Ithaca. His palace has been overrun by this mob of arrogant suitors, more than 100 of them. They're just lounging around, eating his food, drinking his wine, and trying to force his wife, Penelope, to finally give up, declare him dead, and marry one of them. The stakes could not be higher.
And this all builds to one of the most incredible climaxes ever. Odysseus finally gets home, but he's disguised as an old, broken-down beggar. His wife, Penelope, not knowing it's him, announces one final challenge for the suitors. Whoever can string her husband's giant bow can marry her. Of course, they all fail miserably. Then, the old beggar steps up, strings it like it's nothing, and reveals who he is. And what comes next is bloody, brutal revenge, and finally, after 20 long years, a reunion.
So that's the story laid out from A to Z. Simple enough, right? But here is the truly brilliant part. That is absolutely not how Homer tells it. As one scholar put it, Homer's choice to focus the whole epic right on the moment of Odysseus's return, well, it's a total masterstroke.
See, instead of starting at the beginning with the fall of Troy, Homer drops us right into the middle of the action, what's called in medias res. The poem kicks off in year 20, when Odysseus is already trapped on that island, and the situation at his home is at a boiling point. So how do we learn about the Cyclops and the sirens? Through flashbacks. Odysseus actually tells his own story. This structure creates so much more suspense and focuses the entire story on that desperate final push home.
And because he does it this way, the past isn't just backstory. It becomes this living, breathing force in the present. Every memory, every story he tells adds more weight and more emotional power to what's happening right now as he fights for his home. Just look at how brilliantly this all comes together at the end. 3 things from the deep past become the keys to the present. First, a scar he got as a boy proves his identity to his old, loyal nurse. Then, the bow, his own weapon that hasn't been touched in 20 years, becomes the tool of his revenge. And finally, the most powerful one, the secret of his marriage bed, a bed he literally carved out of a living olive tree. That secret is the final, intimate proof for Penelope that this man really is her husband. The past isn't just the past, it's everything. So you put all that together, the incredible story, the genius structure, and you start to see why it's captivated people for almost 3,000 years. It's because it's about so much more than a guy on a boat. The Odyssey taps into themes that are just fundamentally human. That deep, gut-wrenching ache to just get home. The struggle to figure out who you even are after years of change and trauma. The power of loyalty, the meaning of family, and that raw desire to see justice done. These ideas are completely timeless.
And here's a really cool insight. Homer's other great epic, the Iliad, is all about war on this massive, glorious scale. But the Odyssey? It brings the whole conflict right into the home. The final, most important battlefield isn't Troy, it's Odysseus's own dining room. The fight is for the household, what the Greeks called the oikos. And that wasn't just the building, it was your family, your legacy, your place in the world. It was everything, and Odysseus was about to lose it all.
And that intense personal focus on what home means is a huge reason this story has survived. By grounding this wild fantasy of gods and monsters in a struggle for something so real and universal, Homer made sure the story would still connect with people 3,000 years later.
Because when you get right down to it, the Odyssey isn't just about the physical journey of getting back to a place. It's about the emotional journey of recognition. It's about having to prove to others and yourself who you are after the world and you have completely changed.
And that leaves us with a question that feels just as powerful today as it did for the ancient Greeks. After a long journey, after life has thrown everything it has at you, how do you prove you're still the same person who left?